Hello, we're working on some more quadratic formula problems today. However, today we're going to try to shorten things a little bit and make things a little bit easier for you in some ways. So these first three examples, 1a, 2a, 3a, we're going to go ahead and just use the quadratic formula as we have been. No changes. We're just going to plug it in. So I'm going to say x equals, a is 2, b is 12, c is 10. So I'm going to say negative 12 plus or minus. Then I'm going to say 12 squared, b squared, minus 4 times a times c, all over 2a. Okay, so simplify it some now. We get negative 12. This is going to turn into 4. 12 squared is 144. And then 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 10 is 80. Okay, continue. Negative 12. This turns into 64 over 4. Okay, so if you keep that going, you get negative 12 plus or minus 8 over 4. And so you're going to get two answers. You're going to get negative 4 over 4. And you're going to get negative 20 over 4. So that turns into negative 1 and negative 5. Okay, so same thing, new problem. Number 2. X equals positive 20 because it's a negative b, and b is negative 20, plus or minus the square root of negative 20 squared, which is going to be a big number, minus 4 times a times c, all over 2a. Okay, so I'm going fast. If you need to slow down, pause it, rewind. Okay, I know that these take time. Okay, so I've got 20 plus or minus the square root of negative 20 squared, that's 400. But then negative 4 times 1 times 100 is also 400. So what you're going to end up with is 20 plus or minus 400 minus 400, that's 0. And the square root of 0 is just 0. So what you're going to end up with is 20 plus 0 and 20 minus 0. So both those answers are going to turn into 20 over 2, which is 10. So you're going to get one answer for that one. Okay, last one. We go x equals negative 6 plus or minus 6 squared minus 4ac, all over 2a. So we have negative 6 plus or minus 6 squared is 36. And then you multiply all this. So 4 times 3 times 8. 4 times 3 is 12. Times 8 is 96. And it's minus 96 over 6. So the problem we're going to run into is that 36 minus 96 gives you negative 60. And you can't take the square root of negative 60. You can't take the square root of negative anything. So what we end up with is no real solution. Okay? So now here's where we're going with this. It says, how could we determine how many solutions or equations, or an equation might have without doing the entire quadratic formula? Is there one part of the formula that tells if there will be 0, 1, or 2 solutions? Well, what we want you to see is we want you to see that if you get the square root of a positive number, you're going to end up with 2 answers. If you get the square root of 0, you're only going to get 1 answer. And if you get the square root of a negative, you're going to get no answers. Okay, so once again, positive square root, you get 2 numbers because you get that plus or minus. But when it's 0, like here, plus or minus 0 is just the same thing. You're only going to get 1 answer out of that. And then the last example over here, we said a negative. We can't do that. You get no solution. Okay, so square root of a positive number equals 2 solutions. Square root of 0 equals 1 solution. Square root of a negative number equals no solutions. Okay, so if you look at these equations and graph them, like in Desmos, if you were to say y equals 2x squared plus 12x plus 10, that's going to look like this. Okay, and your answers were -1 and -5, and you see that right there. Okay, if you plug in this middle equation, y equals x squared minus 20x plus 100, what you end up with is a graph like this. And here it is at 10. So the one solution, it sits on that x-axis. Okay? So then the last one, what do you think it's going to be? Since it's no solution. Y equals 3x squared plus 6x plus 8. It's up here. And you see how it doesn't cross the y-axis, or sorry, it doesn't cross the x-axis at all? That's why there's no solution to it. Okay? All right, so on the back, we simplify some things for you here, and then I'll give you a chance to try it yourself. If the discriminant, this part under the square root, okay, so let me back up. It says the discriminant, the part of the expression under the radical sign, so that b squared minus 4ac part, right, the part under the square root. If that is positive, right, in other words, greater than 0, we're going to have 2 solutions, and that graph is going to cross in 2 places. If it's equal to 0, okay, equal to 0, we're going to have 1 solution because the graph is going to just sit on the x-axis. It's going to touch it one place. If it's a negative number, right, we're going to get no solutions because that graph is floating up there in the air and it's never crossing the x-axis. Okay, so what we need to do here on these last ones is plug it in. Okay, do b squared minus 4ac, just that part. Okay, so a is 1, b is 4, c is 10. So b squared means 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 10. So 16 minus 40. So I'm going to get a negative, I don't know, what is that? Negative 24 maybe. So how many solutions will that have? No solutions. Okay? Go ahead and do these last two. Just doing b squared minus 4ac. And try to tell me how many solutions you should expect to get.